So, I'm going to be doing a movie review here. I don't know how long this is going to end up being. I have a lot to say. And I've never seen this movie before yesterday. But I consumed some magical fungi and all other various substances. And I watched a classic film. It's been highly recommended to me. Never seen it before. Watched 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968. All right, so I have a lot to say about this movie. So once again, I'd like to remind everyone, I've never seen this movie before. People have been recommending I watch this movie for a very long time, and I understand why. So I was going nuts yesterday, let me tell you. So this movie is like 2.5 hours. And for those of you that are not familiar with psychedelic drugs, it takes about, I would say an hour and a half to really start to get to the beginning of the peak of your experience, right? And then probably by the 2.5 hour mark, you're going to start coming down from the experience, right? So for me, right, that's where the ending of this movie was. It was in that peak period for me. And so now I want to say, so I consumed a lot of drugs and started watching this movie. Wow. There's so much to say about this movie. I don't I can guarantee you I will watch this movie again. I will guarantee you that, that everyone on earth should watch this movie. This might be one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. This might be one of the greatest movies ever made. I think I think every frame of this film is perfect. Again, it's a profound experience. So I was on drugs. I was on drugs when I watched this fucking shit. It was great. The thing about this movie, it's very artistic, right? It's very expressionist. It's very abstract. So there's a lot going on, but a lot of the scenes in this movie are really just long. One thing happens, but there's a long wind up and wind down, right? And so, a lot the scenes where it's the rotating ship or whatever, right? And it just shows the full rotation each time. Oh my god. I want to say, so I'm very much so under the effects of multiple hallucinogenic substances. And so I'm watching this film and I'm obsessed with the set. I'm obsessed with the fucking set. I can't get over, every set piece in this movie is fucking amazing, right? They spent so much time, energy, and effort crafting the sets. I'm talking, that one scene at the start of the movie with the red chairs, where they're having a conversation, and that long, weird-shaped building with the red chairs. And during that whole scene, I was thinking, there's literally dozens and dozens of people, right? Got together, made all of these chairs, made this room, and it only is there for it's only one scene. It's 5-minute scene, and then it's gone, but I was thinking about wow, every there's such a huge attention to detail in this movie, right? Every small screen has its own thing going on. I was into this movie. I've never seen a sci-fi movie that hooked me this much. Now again, I was on drugs when I watched this movie. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. Now I don't know I don't know the personal lives of Arthur Clarke or Stanley Kubrick too well. But I'm gonna be honest, I feel like this movie was designed for people that either have done drugs or are on drugs watching the movie. I could not imagine having a similar experience enjoying this movie if you were sober. If you were completely sober, I could not, maybe you'll like the movie, but I don't know. I feel like this movie was designed for drugs. I feel like this is a drug movie. Maybe I'm just projecting. Maybe I'm projecting my love of drugs onto this film. But I'm just saying, 1968, I don't know, man. There was a lot of drugs going around in the 60s. I'm just saying, there's a high chance that this is a movie designed for people on drugs. Especially with the ending, and I'm going to talk about the ending in a sec here. But anyway, so the first part with the monkeys, oh my god, right? It's incredible. Right, the whole thing, the fucking, the landscapes, right? The fucking, the music was, oh my god, the music was incredible. Every detail was it's just, it's incredible. It's Like I was like obsessed with the film. Like I mean, just starting it. Like I wasn't like my drugs weren't really kicking in yet at the start of the film. But like like I was still into it. Like by the time they were going into space. So anyway, so the story. What even is the story? I gotta read the book, by the way. I'm gonna definitely read the book. I have not done so yet, but I will. I will absolutely read the book. And possibly the sequels, but I absolutely want to read the book version of this. So maybe I'll do a book review in the future. But the story is fascinating. So there's a monolith, right, at the start, and like the monkey people, like there's supposed to be like kind of like a missing link, between like humans and apes or whatever. That's kind of what they look like. And so they touch the monolith, and then they have the idea, oh, we should be using some tools, to make our lives easier. So then the monkeys start beating the shit out of each other with bones. Fast forward, however many years, a couple 100,000, maybe a million or so, who knows. And I think it's 4 million actually. They said 4 million in the movie. I think that's how many years. But anyway, so they move forward 4 million years or whatever. And so then they're a space civilization by 2001. Now, again, this movie was released in 1968. So I'm not sure if like they were like this is what they thought 2001 would look like, or I don't know. But then I was thinking, like, keep in mind, I'm on a lot of drugs when I'm watching this movie, and I'm obsessed with the fact that this movie was made in 1968. Like, this movie was produced before human beings walked on the moon. Like, think about that. Like maybe there's people in the chat that are older that lived before the moon landing. Me personally, I was not alive before the moon landing. So my entire life, like, humans have walked on the moon. So I'm thinking to myself, like, imagine you're sitting in a movie theater, right? It's 1968, right? Humans have never landed on the moon, right? Like what is your frame of reference for any of this? Like, I don't know, man. I was obsessed with that. I was thinking about that a lot. And so it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. But anyway, so I don't know if they thought that we would be having like satellites and stuff by 2001 or whatever, because I know the space race was a big thing in the 60s, right? So it's like possible that they thought that would continue to accelerate. Little did they know how fucking Reagan would destroy NASA, and basically, like, we should have been, digging into the middle of the moon by 2001, but instead capitalism and runaway fucking corporatism decided to destroy our entire civilization, and we're still picking up the pieces from those disastrous moves from the 1980s. The 1980s is one of the worst fucking decades for human history when it comes to politics, by the way, but Jesus Christ. Anyway, so they go to the moon and they find another monolith, right? So like the way I interpret this part, right, is like, so it's the start line and the finish line, or it's like the checkpoint, right? Because then there's the monolith at the end, but we'll get into that later. Right, so it's like you give the proto-humans, like the missing link or whatever, the idea to use technology. You place another monolith on the moon somewhere, right? So like, if humans are capable of getting to the moon, how are they going to get to the moon? Via technology, right? So it's kind of like you place the finish line there. So then humans touch the goddamn monolith on the moon, and then that's where all hell breaks loose, right? They're all like freaking out. They're like, whoa, right? Like, who knows what's going on in their brains, right? They're getting beamed in some information. And then, like, the story turns into a different movie, right? Then there's like the HAL 9000 section of the movie. Now, keep in mind, I'm on drugs when I'm watching this movie. I'm on a lot of drugs. I'm doing fucking like, I'm sucking down vape cartridges. I'm fucking, I'm going in during this movie. I was extremely altered, let me tell you. And so now we're in the section where they're going on a mission to Jupiter. So they touch the monolith and they're like, all right, we got to go to fucking Jupiter. Otherwise we're going to get stupider. Am I right, people? So they go to Jupiter, and then the people that are on the mission to Jupiter have not heard about the monolith thing. They don't know why they're going there. They're just like, oh, we're going to Jupiter. Like, they're not, they're not in on the whole thing. So anyway, and then there's like an AI. So this is like a new character. So I'm not going to lie to you. During the HAL 9000 section of the movie, I completely forgot that this was like, I completely forgot about the other parts of the movie. Like, I forgot they existed. I forgot that I was watching, like, I forgot about the whole monkey thing at the beginning. I forgot about the moon. So when I was like, I don't know, like 10 minutes into the HAL 9000 section of the movie, I was like, I could not figure out what was going on. Like, okay, so they're on a ship, right? And the computer's talking to them. Now, one of the things about this movie that's incredible, is how, like, the computer HAL 9000 is supposed to have, like, there's supposed to be like kind of like a pseudo proto personality kind of a thing, right? So I was like bouncing around between like the multiple kind of like one, there's two space people, right? There's multiple people in cryosleep, but there's two people that are awake and the computer, right? So there's two space people in the computer, so it's a 3-person mission, right? That's how they set it up, right? They talking about, oh, the computer's just another co-pilot, or like just another spaceman just hanging out with us or whatever. They treat him like a person. But then they realize there's something wrong with this computer. There's something going on with this computer. And they get a little skeptical. So then it starts like, there's like the computer gets paranoid and decides to kill the humans or try to kill the humans. And I'm thinking that, like, I'm like, during this moment, like, I'm flashing between, like, maybe the computer has a point. Maybe the mission is really important. And then I'm like realizing, oh, wait a second. No, the people are just getting murdered by their own technology, right? They made a mistake developing the algorithm and the AI or whatever. They made a mistake and now the computer's killing them, right? So it was like bouncing back and forth between like, oh man, this is like a drama with both sides having valid points. And then I was like, oh wait, no, this is a horror movie. Oh no, these people are getting fucking murdered. Anyway, so the movie is great. I gotta say, this is a 10 out of 10. This is like, even a 10 out of 10 scale does not capture how good this movie is. This movie is like a fucking 11 out of 10, if that exists. It's a perfect movie. If you were to ask me, what would you change? What would I change? Nothing. The movie's perfect. Anyway, so there's this intermission sequence. Now, keep in mind, I'm on drugs when I'm watching this. So the intermission sequence comes up, right? It says intermission, and then it fades to black. And I'm thinking, so first of all, part one, right? Like, I'm thinking, okay, so there's an intermission, right? Because you couldn't pause a movie in 1968, right? You couldn't pause movies in 1968. So, it's a long movie. They built in an intermission. That's cool. And then I'm thinking, all right, so maybe I should go to the bathroom during the intermission. And then I'm thinking, but wait a second, there's music during the intermission, right? Like, I'm thinking, this is art. This is part of the art experience. This is the experience of enjoying this art, is listening to the music on the intermission. Then I'm thinking, if I were to get up and use the bathroom, I would pause the movie during the intermission, because to me, the intermission itself was art. It was part of the film for me. I was super into the intermission, right? And during the intermission, I was going back and forth. I was looping. Everyone loves to talk about loops when they're on fucking drugs. So I'm looping. Should I go to the bathroom? If I use the bathroom, should I pause the movie? Or should I try to like go the classic experience of using the bathroom during the intermission, but then I don't want to miss the intermission? What if something happens? What if I get back and the intermission's over? I don't know how long the intermission is. It's like it pops up and it doesn't say like intermission parentheses, here, use the bathroom, it's 2 minutes, right? It just says intermission, right? It just says intermission. Like, how long is the intermission? Like, how long is it? I don't know. Like, what if I have to go take a shit? What if I'm in there for 10 minutes? You ever shit on shrooms, by the way? That's like a nightmare experience. I hate doing it, right? But I don't want to be in there for 48 minutes and I'm missing the rest of the movie. I don't know what's going on. So then I realize I don't need to use the bathroom. I'm just going to watch the movie and then the intermission's over, right? But I'm like having a crisis during this intermission. But anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit more about art, right? So I'm obsessed with the set for this movie. I was looking this up this morning, like a bunch of set behind the scenes stuff. Now, one of the things, right, about I like art. I like art in the sense of like, I like paintings. I like music. I like all forms of art. I like all forms of artistic expression, right? So I'm constantly thinking during this movie. So this is a movie, right? It was made in the 60s, in the 1960s, right? In the real world, right? Of what they thought would be like an alternate future kind of thing, and they wrapped the story around it. And so I'm like looking at all like the sets, and I'm thinking like, yeah, that's some definitely like, look at that upholstery. That is something you'd see in the 1960s, right? Like, look at this and that. Look at that font. That is. So I'm constantly like observing this as an artistic piece, because that's what this is. I mean, this is like a 50-year-old movie now. This is art. I mean, like, in the same way you would look at like a fucking Vincent van Gogh painting or something, you look at this, it's art. It's an experience. It's an artistic experience, right? I feel like a lot of movies nowadays are just kind of filler. I feel like a lot of movies nowadays are just something to turn on and then you watch it and it's like 80 minutes and then you go to sleep and you forget that you ever seen the movie. This is art. This is an experimental experience. I mean, again, this is an incredible film. I don't know how long I've been talking about it, but anyway, so let's talk about the ending. So anyway, so some guy floats away, gets killed by Hal, basically. The other guy tries to chase him to save him. Then they realize Hal is setting him up for failure. And then they go to try to dismantle Hal. So in dismantling Hal, they learn about a pre-recorded message, right, of why they were going to Jupiter. Now again, I had completely forgotten. By the time that they had gotten to the point where they're in that section with like the fucking hard drives and the white labels, by the way, I was tripping hard. I was seeing those fucking, when he was in the file room for Hal, like I was seeing like the fucking hard drives like coming out of my screen. Like I was freaking the fuck out. I just spat all over myself. But I was seeing the hard drive because there were like these small thin things, but there was like 40 of them like on screen and they were all moving slightly. They were like, my brain was unable to interpret that. But anyway, so he disables Hal, I guess, and then learns that Hal was given a secret scoop that the humans were not. So again, the humans were left in the dark on why they were going to Jupiter, but they were like, let's tell Hal because, you know, he's a computer, so it's not like, you know, but that's what, then that we, like, that's kind of what fucked Hal up in the first place. Like, Hal is like, oh, we need to get the fucking Jupiter. Like, this is some crazy shit, we gotta go, right? So then eventually they realize, oh, we gotta kill the humans because they're I don't know, like, you know, Hal's going crazy or whatever. But you know, my interpretation of that is that the message, learning about what's going on, is what drove Hal to being crazy or whatever. So anyway, and then the experience starts. Now again, now again, not only am I, 1, a drug user, 2, I'm a frequent drug user, 3, I'm a semi-experienced drug user, and 4, I was watching the movie on drugs, right? So let's talk about the ending sequence. I could not imagine watching this ending sequence being like not experienced with drugs. Like imagine like someone who's like stone cold sober, never done a drug, never drank alcohol in their life. They're just like, they don't know anything about that world. They go in and watch this movie. They're going to look at that ending and they're going to go, what the fuck? Like none of it makes any sense. As a drug user, as someone who's very experienced and, well, I don't know about very, right? But you know, wow. Like I'm telling you. So again, right, like we're like this, the ending sequence kind of starts around the 2-hour mark. Now for me, I don't know if this movie was designed around the onset of like a mushroom trip, but for me, like 2 hours, right? 2 hours is around where the peak is, right? Like for me, like the 2 to 3 hour mark is around where the peak, you're gonna have the most intense effects, and that's where the fucking ending starts. So I am like hallucinating, right? Like the file room is freaking me out. Like I'm having a hard time like staying in the real world. Like I'm watching a movie. This is a movie. This is not like a documentary on the real world. I was like, I was wrapped in the experience, right? And then the fucking like the Technicolor shit starts, and I'm like, yo, again, I'm not gonna lie to you. I could not imagine watching this movie as someone who, like, if I watched this movie 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have not understood it. I would have been too stupid. If you have seen this movie, if you have seen this movie and you're not a drug user, and if you ever start using like psychedelic drugs or whatever, I would highly recommend you gotta watch this movie while you're tripping. It's an experience. So now, like the part where like they're flying through like the fucking distorted color like landscapes and shit. Oh my god. Like sometimes when I'm doing like fucking drugs and I'm sitting in my bed and I close my eyes, like that's the kind of shit I see, right? I like see like the fucking like the fractals and, you know, the spinning fucking all the shit going on. That's what I see when I'm on drugs. And that's like, I mean, again, I don't know about their personal lives. I'm under the impression that the entire ending, or maybe possibly the entire story, is just like some way for them to explain what drugs are like to people that don't do drugs. Now, whether or not that was a good explanation, I don't know. If you're not a drug user and you watch this movie, you're probably not going to really understand much. But anyway, so then we get to the room. Now, again, I've never seen this movie before. I know a lot of people have debated about this. I spent this morning looking up like people's ending explained videos. I know a lot of people who I've read articles and seen videos, and from what I remember of people telling me, oh, you'll like the ending to 2001 sucks or whatever. To me, the ending is incredible. I mean, it's like the ending is amazing. It's the whole thing. I mean, the whole movie is art. The whole movie is a 10 out of 10. Like I would like look at like the first frame of the movie and look at the last frame of the movie or any frame of the movie, and I'd hang it on my wall. Like the whole movie is a perfect experience. I cannot find a single flaw. But I definitely understand why someone would not understand the ending. So there's like a bizarre like floating like drone through landscapes, and then there's like the Technicolor thing, and then there's the eyeballs, and then the main character winds up in a room. right? The main character's in a room, wanders around this like hotel looking place, but it's like super fancy, but then it's got like some weird out of place like fucking shit, like throughout antiquity or whatever, like some like, nice furniture from random points, and it's an amalgamation of random shit. And so he's wandering around the room, and then he sees another person, and that person is eating like, food or whatever, and then they turn around, and it turns out it's that guy, but older, right? That's right. We're getting into non-linear time, motherfucker. I love non-linear time, and again, when I do drugs, I experience non-linear time. Like, like 30, like, 40 minutes into my trip might happen like after like 90 minutes in my trip, and like I can't tell what part happened first. It's non-linear experience, right? So that's kind of what's being, in my interpretation of the ending, that's what's being expressed here, is that he's experiencing time in a non-linear fashion. So he's experiencing first entering this hotel room as he's experiencing like aging in this like this generated hallucination. I'm like possible like I don't think that this is even a physical space. I think it's not even what is a physical space. When you really think about it, what the fuck even is a physical space, right? It doesn't, but anyway, so this is like, in my opinion, either a mental projection, a hallucination of some kind, some sort of thing, right? So he ages completely, right? And he sees like himself age and die or whatever. And then the monolith shows up and whatever. And then he turns into a fetus, and then the planet or whatever. Now, again, if you are not a drug user, I can understand why you would see this ending. I understand why there's like 10 trillion different articles about 2001 ending explained, right? Because if you are not a drug user, you probably don't know what the fuck's going on, and you might need some help there. And so, but anyway, like the fetus part, like again, all like time is just like, in my opinion, time is just, it's a way to perceive how the world is, right? Like the conscious like brain that we live in perceives time because our consciousness is better suited for survival if we perceive time in a linear fashion. When you think about memory, this goes into my infamous, potentially, living memory theory ranting and raving session. Personally, I think every experience that happens to you, right, all, presents itself as a memory. You can recall certain memories. But what's the difference between a memory, right, something that happened and you remember it, and a story, something you made up, but you have it in your head, but maybe you're convinced that it's real, and something that, like, hasn't happened. Like, what's it like? So anyway, so they're expressing nonlinear time in the ending here, and it's great. I was freaking out. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was freaking out. Like, I was like in my bed, and I had my blanket. I was like, oh! Right? I was like, and the music starts blaring. So anyway, so the monolith or whatever, apparently like some hyperdimensional like ultra-terrestrial being or race or whatever is trying to like bring the humans to them in some way. And so the ending is kind of like a way to express like just like gaining information that is outside of general human consciousness, right? So this is why I say that this is absolutely a drug movie. If you are not a drug user, like you don't understand what any of that means, right? But if you're a drug user, you probably are someone, a psychedelic drug user, I should say specifically. That's my kind of, my brand. But anyway, it's actually 164. But anyway, talking to the chat. Anyway, so, this is like a way to interpret, like, experiencing things that are beyond our realms of any, like, nonlinear time. We experience time in a linear fashion because that's just how our brains are wired, right? That's just how our brains are wired. But, like, does that mean that time is expressed in a linear fashion? No, not at all, right? And so that's kind of what's being expressed in the ending here, is that things that happen before, like the concept of before and after, like really, what is like, is there really a difference, right? Like you look at like, like the fucking bending of space-time bullshit, like, and all that, we can get in on, I can go into that in another time maybe. But anyway, right, so the ending is like, just like the, whatever hyperdimensional ultra-terrestrial species is just beaming so much information to this human brain that the only way for it to process information is to produce like a similar comfortable, like hallucinatory room, right? To like, live out your life, to experience all of the stuff while it's happening, some sort of safe safe space essentially, so that the brain is able to process information more appropriately. Now, again, I know that there is a sequel film, not directed by Kubrick, but I would like to watch it. I know that there's sequel novels, and I'm definitely interested in acquiring them. And looking into them, because this is an art piece. I mean, this is a masterpiece. Like, by every definition, every metric that you could possibly use, this is one of the greatest movies ever made. I would recommend it to every single person. Every person who's ever recommended this movie to me, now I know what you're talking about. I mean, it's a great movie. I don't know how long I've been talking. Probably like 30 minutes. I could probably talk for how longer than this movie's runtime about how good this movie is, but I'll put it down for this. If you have not seen this movie, I recommend watching it. But if you have not seen this movie on drugs and you have access to psychedelic drugs, I would highly recommend doing that. It's part of the experience. Like, it is part of the experience. This is not a movie. This is not a film. This is not like a motion picture. This is an experience, right? I need to kind of delineate the difference between these words. Like a movie, you sit down, you eat popcorn, it's like, whoa, look at the guys driving the cars, and then bang, 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 the guns go up, and then bloom, right? That's movies, right? Like, this is an experience, right? This is an emotional, experience that, it's perfect. I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, one of the best movies, if not the best movie ever made. I don't know if it's possible to say what the best movie is, but this is whatever is the upper echelon of film, the highest tier possible. This movie's in the highest tier. This is incredible. It's just, I'm speechless. I imagine watching this in 1968. That's what I was thinking about. Like, watching this in, before the moon landing, fucking, you don't even know who Buzz Aldrin is. That's a name, oh, do you know about Buzz Aldrin? Who? What? It's 1968, bro. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Right? Imagine watching this film in that in and of itself is a different experience. I wish I would have, I would have the ability to experience that. I wish I could, but I'm unable to. But experiencing this movie in 2022, I mean, it's still pretty incredible. It's still pretty incredible. And I'm excited to read the book. I'm excited to watch the sequel, even though I'm under the impression the sequel is a little bit different. But, I'll give it a shot, of course. Hopefully it's not a Lawnmower Man 2 scenario, right? But anyway, 2001, one of the best movies ever made. And anyone that says this movie is bad, which I've seen a couple people say that this movie is bad. When reading a little bit about people's interpretations of the ending this morning, anyone that says this movie is bad, honestly, I'm going to rethink my position on the death penalty, to be honest with you, because if you think this movie is bad, I mean, let's be honest, you don't belong in society. No, I'm just joking. But of course, this is an excellent film. It's incredible. Can I heap more praise on it? Possibly. Will I? Absolutely, because this movie is fucking great. I mean, wow, what, the fucking rotating bullshit, the fucking rooms, the set design, perfect. I mean, it's a masterpiece. I don't know what else to say. It's a masterpiece. I absolutely would love to watch A Clockwork Orange on shrooms, and I'm going to very soon.